Hey guys, it's me, Dr. Cameron Dennis, physical therapist with Back on Track Therapy and Wellness. And today I wanted to talk to you about anxiety. This is something that I think many of us deal with, but we don't always like to talk about it. And I think it's something that's becoming more and more appropriate, more and more accepted for us to talk about. I'm not sure why that's the case, but I'm really happy to see it. Now, myself, I have kept this no secret. I've dealt with this in the past, and I still do to some extent today. But what I can tell you is that it can get better. So personally, it started for me, I think, whenever I was a teenager, living at home with my parents. There was a lot of fighting and a lot of yelling. It wasn't all the time. We weren't miserable all the time, but there was quite a bit of tension in our house. And that led to sort of feeling on edge all the time, mentally and emotionally. And that led to that sort of feeling of nervousness all the time. And so I went to college and, completely overwhelmed with meeting new people, and then which I'd never had problems with before. And I still didn't have problems meeting people, but I was just a little bit nervous to show my real self, I think, because of all the things that had happened when I was growing up. And I didn't feel worthy to be there or to be friends with these people, right? And so the other thing was, all of the schoolwork and everything. It was a lot of hard stuff, the chemistry, the physics, the calculus, all the different classes that you have to take to become a PT. And I got through it just fine. I didn't have to take any medication. I didn't really have to make any real difference, any real changes in my life until I got to PT school. This is sort of when I think my anxiety started to sort of go up, because PT school, for any of you who haven't been through PT school, it's crazy. It is nuts. So, just the sheer volume of things you have to learn and know, and the tests. And I had packets of information about that thick, full of 6 slides each page that I had to know, and it's not just me, it's everyone that goes through PT school. But that was just for maybe one test. And I'm not exaggerating. It was ridiculous. And the anxiety really started to build on there. And that, in combination with being in the PT program with people who I felt were much smarter than myself, I didn't feel worthy to be in the same class with these people. And that was an issue with the self-worth that I had been feeling. But in combination with the anxiety, didn't really allow me to be myself. It didn't allow me to share my thoughts and ideas in a natural way in class or with my classmates. So I was afraid to really even talk to my classmates in a lot of situations. And I felt rejected and things, it just wasn't a good situation. But and many of you might feel this when you're at work, or maybe when you're in a group of, big group of friends or things like that. But, and so really no matter what I did, I didn't really ever come out of that during PT school. So it's just something that is really even haunted me to this day, knowing that I wasn't able to be my complete self when I was there. So there is a happy ending to this story. But basically, so then I got through PT school. I did fine. I passed the test in the first try and all that. We moved home, and I started to. We lived in Toledo for the school, and then we moved to a smaller place, much smaller. And it just didn't. I didn't feel at home when I was there. When I was even in our little town for a long time. Just because I think you got used to being in Toledo for about 7 years or so, and then you just kind of get plopped down in this little area here, and you just kind of go into your own little circle. We didn't really reach out to a lot of our friends and things like that because I didn't feel like I fit in there either. And what happened was I sort of started to get inside my own head even more. I did start working as a contractor, a travel physical therapist for a while, and that seemed to help me build some confidence, um, because I was kind of the boss. I had to be the boss. I had to fake it until I made it, right? Fake it till you make it. I had to do that. I had to feel confident, and I had to put that anxiety, kind of shove it down a little bit so that I could do my job, even though it was sort of bubbling under the surface there. But it really sort of met its peak when we had our 2-month-old child, named Parker, who we love. And that was in April of 2017. And so basically he was pretty colicky. It was our first child, so we didn't really know what to expect. And my wife and I both went through these sort of dark times. And she was depressed. I was depressed. My anxiety level was like a 10 or 11 because I had just started doing content videos for this group around that time. And I started to build my business and my own following. So that, in combination with working full time at the skilled nursing facility and having the baby, I mean, that was probably the darkest I've ever felt, the most anxious I've ever felt. But what changed was, Parker got a little older and he was a little less colicky, so we could sleep a little more. I mean, we were sleeping an hour at a time in those days. That helped, right? But sometimes you can't change your environment. So what do you do in those situations? I think a lot of times what we need to do is change our perspective, change our outlook. So what I had to do was look at what in my life was making me feel this way. And why was it making me feel this way? So one thing that was making me anxious was a lot of the things at work, in the clinic, in the physical therapy clinic, the skilled nursing facility where I was working before. A lot of the paperwork and the tasks and keeping up with the insurance companies and all of these different things. So many things, it just was too much. I just wanted to focus on patients. I wanted to help patients. I didn't want to deal with all this extra stuff. And so that was one thing I could control. So that's when I started the business, right? So that's just one step that I took. Okay. Another thing that I did was I started to meditate. Now, when I say meditate, I don't get down on my knees and do the thing. What I did was I would just sit on the couch. Our baby would be laying right here in his little rock and play. I would sit on the couch and just breathe. I would breathe and I would just let my mind relax. And it was the first time that I really gave myself permission to relax. Even thinking about it now makes me emotional because I know how hard of a time it was for me. It was one of the hardest times of my life. And doing those deep breathing exercises where I would just take a deep breath in, and do it with me now if you're still watching. Take a deep breath in. And you're going to expand your lungs as big as you can. Sometimes it helps to kind of sit open like this. If you have a couch, put your arms up on the couch like that. Or just sit as open as you can. Just open your chest up. Take as deep a breath as you can. Really allow yourself to become full with that oxygen, okay? So take 3 or 4 seconds to do that inhale. And exhale everything you've got, okay? You might do that for a couple minutes. I mean, I might have done it for 10 minutes and just let myself relax. And that made a big difference for me. I knew that was my time. So that was my time when nobody could bother me. So, Parker was asleep. My wife was upstairs sleeping. I was on the couch. And I would just relax. It took 2 or 3 minutes, sometimes up to 10 minutes to relax. And I still follow that principle to this day because that changed my life. It really did. Something as simple as breathing, and I know you're probably thinking, why did you do a video just to tell us to breathe? but it really did make a big difference for me. And I suggest that you try it, um, because now I have to deal with the growing business, right, with 2 locations and potentially 3 new employees, dealing, and seeing patients who I love doing all of this, but it is a lot, right? So, and those things can make you anxious. We still have our child. I'm doing training for a 60K. That's in September, and so trying to balance the finances, the marketing, sales, everything. It's challenging. It is, but when you have the right perspective and you're taking time for yourself to relax and unwind, I think that helps a lot. And the last thing I would say is get organized. A lot of the anxiety that I was having came from being disorganized. So if you can find a way to write down your thoughts, write down the things that you're struggling with. So literally just write down everything that you're thinking. So get a big marker board. That's what I've done. Is just write it all out. What do I have to do today? X, Y, Z. Okay. And then it helps to see that and to know it's not as bad. And then you now have your goals. You have your tasks. And that seems to help quite a bit for me, because otherwise you just have these thoughts sort of floating around. But when it's more concrete, I feel like it's more manageable. So try those things, see what you think, see if that helps at all. Let me know if it doesn't. Let me know if it does. So I hope to see you around soon. Once again, this is Dr. Cameron Dennis, physical therapist with Back on Track Therapy and Wellness. And take a deep breath, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.